Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the OG's Power Hour. We're talking the predator-prey model today, and that covers a whole spectrum. But we've got Josh from BioAg with us today. He's filling in while John Berfelo is taking choruses. And who knows, maybe we can get him on a regular basis. But how are you doing this morning, Josh? I know you're traveling. I think you're in California this morning, right?
Yes, I'm in Fort Bragg, California. Beautiful Fort Bragg. One of my favorite places along the California coast.
All right, on. And I can see it's bright and sunny there. I know our weather's changing. We're going to a little bit colder, but when we talk about predator prey, what does that bring into your mind, Josh?
I think about having a symbiotic circle with my environment and my plants and my garden, and how that fits in not only how everything grows, but my life. How everything works together to get to a common goal.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you can have the best garden in the world. If you got 3 kids, a wife, a job, it's very, very hard to get that to work. So your garden's got to not only fit your budget, but fit the time you have to put into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's a predator prey on the time. And that's where, we talk a lot about time blocking, setting up your SOPs so that you know what you're doing as soon as you get there. And speaking of John Berfelo and SOPs, hey, John, how you doing this morning?
I'm always fantastic.
John, have you met Josh Hedberg from BioAg?
Well, we're meeting each other right now.
Yes. Good to meet you, John.
It's great to meet you, Josh. Joshua? Or do you go by Josh?
Josh. Originally Joshua, go by Josh.
My name's Johnny. I go by John. Some people call me asshole. So
that's a good day, John.
Nice to meet you, Josh. So I guess I get to learn through. I haven't been introduced, and Ken's going to introduce me who you are and what we're doing here.
Well, Josh is a long-term medical grower from Oregon. He had his own hydro shop for several decades, or worked with hydro shops, and then he joined a company called BioAg, which was started by Dr. Faust, more on the agricultural side, but using humics and fulvic acids and other things now to promote soil balance and growth of the biology in the soil and in the plants, both foliarly as soil drenches, etc. So, Josh, other than that, what would you like to say? You've been growing for how many decades now?
I've been growing since I grew my first plant in 1997.
Woo!
And some time. It got real big, real fast in the back corner of my mom's yard, and I got scared and chopped it down. So that was my first plant. It was much years later when I started. One of my first lights that I ever had, I ordered out of
I know who was that.
Crazy! It's me. I'm gonna get out of this room because this is John's world.
No worries. But I've been growing for quite a long time, and having a real good time while I do it. That's been one thing that I've enjoyed my entire life, pretty much, is growing cannabis. It's from my little apartment closet to bigger garages and basements to large warehouses to back to the garage again, and a backyard. But everything comes full circle.
Your brother sounds like sounds like you were just my brother living beside me my whole life, right? Because we've all been doing the same thing.
Oh yes.
I could share with you guys and the team here a little bit about myself. You guys don't mind if I share a little quick one?
Please do. Please.
Appreciate that. So, as a young lad, I really liked weed. I was 11 years old, and I'm like, what's this stuff? I'm stuffing it in some bamboo and smoking it, right? As I moved forward, and I think it was about 1986, we started growing. 87, I had my outdoors. Got hit on by a dump truck in 91, so that was the one we had our first indoors. We had to cut that down. So that was kind of moving forward. And then I really realized that I was always using cannabis. Now, don't forget, all of my friends were on Ritalin and all these stupid drugs in the 80s, right? But I was smoking weed, so I wasn't. Realize that when you get older, right? So I started realizing this was a medicine without even knowing it. And as I grew forward and after getting hit, I started using it oral forms of THC. This was helping with my pain, go figure. So growing forward in my life, I really started kind of growing right from the very beginning. I've been growing since 1988. So I've been in the industry for 42 years, growing weed for 35 plus. I mean, I love this stuff. This is what I love to do. It's my passion. And it gives me the ability to grow forward every day because I get new vision, new growth with the sativas back in the days. And you talk about the folic and humic acids. I mean, that was like, 20 years ago, that's all we had. Yeah, you smile. That's what we used to get. Folic and humic uptake, where you're going to foil the spray. And it's like nowadays, it's like, where is that stuff? What happened to it? I got it in my fridge. I got some folic for right? And just continued to grow forward in my life. I started growing from my own medicine after falling 20 feet on the concrete. And I got my license from Health Canada in 2005. So I was under the first 2,000 people to get a license.
Nice.
I was 50 grams a day, right off the hop because I broke my neck in 4 places. Shed them around 15, broke my back, shed my ankle. They were like, no problem. Here you go. I had one of the biggest licenses back in the days. They just like, because I was like bolts, K-wires coming out of my arm. And here I am using cannabis to get off my pharmaceutical drugs. So I became the first published study on natural cannabis and pain control in history working with Dr. Paul Hornby, my mentor, who worked with the British Columbia Compassion Club Society with Hilary Black. These are some names people might recognize in the chat through here. These are some of the OG legends that brought us to where we are today. And it was that beautiful brownie that got rid of my pain. It was decarboxylated, converted forms of THC baked in a brownie, so it was good for absorption and get to me quicker. And it got me off the pharmaceutical drugs. This in 2007. So working with Dr. Hornby and Dr. Manju Sharman and Bree Stegman, some RN nurses and some doctors at VGH, Vancouver General Hospital, I was able to get off of my pharmaceutical drugs by using cannabis.
Very nice.
Then I was fighting WCB, fighting my house, fight WorkSafe BC, so we're going into. And at that point, I was like, I'm going to grow my own medicine. I entered the Cannabis Cup in Canada. It was the Treating Self magazine, Cannabis Cup. I won first place for best product, MediKush. Going by medical patients for his medicine. 300 judges, one by a landslide, 280 voted my strength because they're all patients. Back then, it was all patients. That's all who was, right? We're in a different thing. Don't forget, we're all patients today. You're smoking it, you're a patient. You just don't realize it. And then as we move forward with that, I mean, it was happened on November 17th, 2012. Me and Jason thought about the coalition against Repel and manifested fighting and taking on Health Canada because they were going to cut down our gardens, tell us we had to show in the garbage. So it was created just after midnight on my way to Amsterdam. And when I got there, I came back and I had found this beautiful container called a Medtainer. Airtight water station built-in grinder. So this is what I brought to market and took around the world. Medicine on the go, the green. I'm Medtainer Canada. I'm known as Medtainer John, and led into standardization for freshness. And the big one was there is after pushing forward. This is a big story. I don't mind if you guys share with me. I thank you for allowing me to just discuss this with you guys. It's kind of like my where I am right now because of where we are. Together, by numbers, we started changing governments, and that's when we started getting to the point where we didn't have to cut down our gardens. I was on the front page of a newspaper. I made the 6 o'clock news, everything. You're going to tell me to cut down my weed and put it in the garbage. Remember that? You had to put it in cat litter out on the curb. And that's what we were told to do. I'm like, that ain't going to happen. So that didn't happen. We kept fighting forward. And, it was on October 18th, 2018 is when we got legalization in Canada. And that was a beautiful way of looking at how far we've come. And it was people by numbers change governments. That was the beautiful thing about it, because as we committed, it was the numbers of the people. Jason Wilcox took it across Canada and just kept pushing forward, and we were all funding and getting that voice going over. And, I get the blessings to be here today to be able to keep moving forward after they took out my C4 and C5. We're in 2016 now. Back again, and the girl drove the C4 over my C5. Then Bubble Man, Mark Richardson, came into the hospital with 15 terpenes and put them underneath my nose. And I'm like, save the terps. We all know that campaign, right? Bovida, save the terp campaign. Bovida was the biggest realization of seeing how cannabis was really a big part of my pain control. It wasn't just the THC, it was about those terpenes. And working with Dr. Paul Hormy, trying to standardize my medicine over years, it came down to water activity. Standardization came down to freshness. It came down to the amount of AW in a container to give that standardized smell because of the terpenes that took my pain away. It wasn't the THC. THC gave it longevity, but the terpenes gave me that drive. That was my hallucination. Because when they put 15 underneath my nose, it was Bubble Man meeting me in the hospital, meeting Johnny B in the hospital with Bubble Man and Mark Richards. I mean, it was DK420. Sorry. And when he put that one underneath my nose, you could see the change in my eyes. And I was grabbing it like, okay, no, honestly, I'm in one of the biggest spinal cord wards in Canada. There's people bolted the tables. I got legs on my bag, these breathing bags on my legs. I got big things on my neck, right? All this stuff on. And one, you can see it took the pain away. That's when we really realized that the growth came down to when I started talking with. We get more into these, all about the biology, all about those proper terpenes, looking at how we can grow together in that community of how we can create that harmony. And it really, yeah, you know what? It was a big moment in my life, seeing that change. Maybe where we are today. Keep fighting for legalization. Keep fighting for those patients. And I've been blessed to be able to be part of Ken's show. But we started collaborating together about 3 years ago.
Yeah, we're in our third season, John.
Season. And I've been doing this. I got seasons. I could say well over 1,000 videos on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John is actually one of the reasons I grew in the methodology that I did was because I watched Johnny B's videos on YouTube to learn how to grow and followed all of his mistakes and all the challenges he faced, so I didn't have to actually face them. Oh, that's nice, John.
It's a beautiful diamond. I was like, that's a sauce one. I was like, yeah, you know what? It came down to all of those great videos, Ken, and it was me recovering from my injuries that led to me growing my own and doing hundreds of videos online and seeing how and working. I worked with hydroponic stores for years. Green Planet Nutrients, Pacific Northwest Garden Supplies. So I was basically put in a medical center inside of P&W in Surrey. And for years, from 2012 until 2016, we had a medical section there and had to teach people. And I got hundreds of people licenses in Canada to grow their own for medical purposes. We had a medical package like Michelle Rainey. She helped us out with all that. It was just going back to some of the OGs in the industry and reflecting where we are today. And now we get to celebrate the best time in history of mankind. This Friday, 420 Live 2024 is going to be the most epic time in history because at midnight, the clock strikes 420, 2024. That's a 420 forwards and backwards. That's a palindrome. That happens once in the history of mankind. This will never happen again. This only happens in our era. I don't care how old we get or how long this world stays around to. This is our time. And at midnight, we're celebrating that. OGs meet the Gen Zs and passing on that knowledge we've learned from all of the past and where we're going in the future of legalization around the world. I'm doing that with the greenwayai.ca. I get to show myself out because I just had a great way of looking at how we can take artificial intelligence to help us in the gardens, in our businesses, and in our advertising and how to take cannabis around the world with proper information and knowledge for everybody.
Very nice.
And that's one of the beauties of John Berfelo. He's always been working to help others. And one of the reasons he's one of my closest friends is the moral values that John brings to the table in everything that he's doing. And Josh, you've been working with the medical side of things for a long time, and you've been helping to teach people. And we're talking, John, today about the predator-prey model. So Josh, when you were doing hydroponics, did you ever consider that in your feeding regimen or anything like that? Or was anything like that ever discussed or thought about back in the day?
It was, most of the time, it was the debate of, you're in a hydro system, and how organic do you want to go when it comes to pest management, IPM, is there a point where you want to introduce beneficial bugs indoors? Which are the best bugs to use? What's the best balance between that and spraying? And being in Oregon, the big thing is staying on, was always mold. How to stay on top of that, how to get rid of it, how to prevent it. Which is why a lot of guys liked the hydroponic systems, because it kept a cleaner space. But once you get a good beneficial organic biome going, it's actually far more beneficial than any sanitized room, and will actually eat the fungus before it ever gets a chance to get established. Same with super healthy plants. Plants that are in hydroponics grow very rapidly, but not because they're necessarily in a huge state of health. It depends on the balance of where they're at, the size of roots that they have. A lot of the times with hydroponic grows, they try to take hydroponic systems, take plants and put them in a bubble and try to make them fit, that bubble. Your roots can get this big, you get this much fertilizer on this program, and it's dictating to the plant, what it, wants it to be, instead of allowing it to, reach its potential, but, a lot of the times telling a plant to be, big, frosty, and high yielding, it's very profitable in the world right now, but once commodities change and more commercial farms get involved with producing cannabis for recreational use, that's going to change. A lot of these smaller farms, are going to have to switch to an organic method, and even a lot of bigger farms are going to do that, not for necessarily the quality, but just because the cost per dollar is far, far cheaper. And it's easier to balance your garden with organics and beneficials than it is to constantly be drenching it with chemicals and sanitizers. If hospitals have taught us anything, is that nature hates a sterile environment. Even space isn't sterile. Sterile gets you MRSA. Sterile gets you things that you can't kill with antibiotics. So that's not a good balance.
Well, even in our own physical bodies, our microbiome, our gut biology controls most of our immune system. And if you're putting in the salts and you're knocking back the biology every time you're feeding your plant, and it has to repopulate before it can really start to grow again, that's just not the best way to do it. It's just a way to get consistency in crops. But you're right, a lot of people are going to be moving to the living soil systems because it's so much more cost effective. It just takes some time to get things dialed in, because most people aren't into that.
It's just a different way of getting to the same place. It's just a more beneficial place that is cheaper to reproduce than any hydroponic system, and is more beneficial to run. But plus you get the benefit of all those organic things that worked pretty good in a chemical environment now work way better. Try using organic fungicides and beneficial bugs in a room with living beds. They work better. They thrive more. They take off more. They stick around longer. I was reading an article just the other day online in a gardening weekly magazine, and they had discovered in a greenhouse, I believe in Europe, a bug that eats fungus. It was actually, it looked like a tiny little a beetle thing, and it was walking on the back of the leaf, eating powdery mildew and botrytis off the back of a leaf. That's a hell of a discovery. Hopefully they can wash, rinse, and repeat those in more greenhouses, and find out what the methodology and where the hell that little guy comes from.
Yeah, and then we got to find out if it's compatible with North America and what's going on over here. Even though we are at the same, meridian line, etc. Everything is different here. Is that biology going to match up over here? But Mother Nature has this amazing way of creating things that are designed to fix the problem, and that's where your predator prey really comes in, because in a system, if you have quorum sensing, and I don't know if you've ever heard of the term quorum sensing, John or Josh and John, But basically what it is you'll get a node of soil, or a lot of people use biochar. The biology gets together and it learns enough that it realizes it's missing something. So it actually creates the biology that can go into the soil structure to pull that out. The study I saw was on tomatoes, where they cooked the soil, took the boron out, and by the end of the tomato life cycle, there was actually boron back in the soil, and there's no other explanation, but the biology built the proper microbes to go into the soil structure to mine boron and create what wasn't actually there. But that's really the predator prey at the extreme, where Mother Nature fixes what's not there anymore. Have you ran into anything like that, Josh?
Well, I just was I did a talk with a gentleman named Mark, who runs a company called Green Grow here in the United States, and that was on terpenes and the relationship between it and beneficial bacteria and biostimulants. And
Right.
there, he went into depth. You have to forgive me. I listened very carefully, but I don't know as much as he does about it. But
Yep.
he was thinking about how with the different types of one of those bacteria and fungus can increase the terpene profile, and there's a direct relationship to biology in the root zone, and that's
Oh,
not only
you're going to have to go back, Josh, because you're fading in and out there.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry, my internet is getting worse here. Let me see if I can do something.
Yeah, you were just talking about how the biology can, in the root zone, changes the terpene profile.
Yes. The biology in the root zone is directly related to the terpenes expressed by the plant, and those terpenes not only give the plant the ability to defend itself against different environmental factors like bugs and things, but it's also a way of communicating with other plants. They've actually studied a phenomenon in the Amazon where one plant gets eaten on by a bug, and then the trees down the line have changed their flavor, and then the bugs don't like to eat on those plants down the way. And they think it's that same pathway of communication. There's different beneficial VOCs that are in places like the Amazon that plants absorb and give them those incredible growth rates and ability to grow as large and voracious as they do in those places.
Well, that's one of the reasons we use chitin, or insect frass, is to stimulate those responses. Because if you don't have that, then you don't get those stimulations. So you're changing the profile of your plant by not stimulating those responses that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
John, you're shaking your head way back there. I can see it.
Yeah, you can, because I was talking with Hetty about some other things, and I'm on this rant right now of ICBC and WCB and natural healing and health and reasons why doctors don't prescribe and how they're being, there's just different things. So I don't have a doctor because I got, it's weird. How do you get fired by a doctor? Because you don't take pharmaceutical drugs. You only go just to kind of report back to a system, which is WCB or ICBC. So it wasn't doing him any good. So now I'm caught in this middle. So I get to smoke my weed as my medicine, which is beautiful, right? And when we understand that, as the real medicine comes down to personal development, positive mental attitude, and seeing where we can go. And I was shaking my head because of a system that I have to get on a phone call in 6 minutes that I have to deal with. And I'm like, oh. So I'm using OpenAI and ChatGTP to do this. And I do this with a lot. And I did this for the cannabis community called the Greenway AI. And we start taking a look at everything we're talking about here. We can start looking at different ways of implementing artificial intelligence to find those different little ways that we can't see or know about. So I've been saying that. I've been working on some stuff. and looking at how we can actually use those tools and stuff, the information we're talking about, and finding that 2 millimeter shift so we can actually get more growth.
Yeah.
It's really about me, cannabis, cucumbers, peppers, and tomatoes going on 100 years being self-sufficient. I've been saying it. Ken knows that. It's all about, well, he's about the biology. Right? It's all about growth. It's all about understanding and knowing that the chemicals that they've been giving us is what's killing us. And then that's going to be the biggest thing. If you want, my dad says, how come your food tastes so good? Because it's organic. Because it's all about that and all about these different things and the nutrients like Medi-1 that I used for so long, and then building my own soils back in the days with folic and humic acids and using super soils, adding the amendments with blood meal and kelp and fish and batch, all this stuff, right? We've done all this stuff. And it's great to just hear this, and the education that needs to be get out there is, like Mike just won a bunch of free soil that's all amended organic soils that they're going around to the community giving out cards. Oh, you want to draw for free organic soils so you can start growing food for your summer. This is awesome. So this was something I learned yesterday. I want to share that with you guys and say awesome. Have a great day. I'm going to jump in this meeting. That's why I was shaking my head. I'm like, I'm caught between all this free time. I got half an hour here and I'm going to the next one. So
very nice to meet you.
Fantastic to meet you, Josh. I can't wait to talk with you more. Ken, as always, love you, brother. And all you guys out there, keep growing. Keep pushing.
Have fun at your event, John. Wish I could be there, man.
See you soon. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Yeah, that's actually one of the cool things that I've noticed, that some of these gardens that are using living soils and soils that they're not reusing, or discounting and selling them for very cheap to people who garden out there. So if you check those what is it, Craigslist and some of those local forums, you're bound to find some, if they have legal pot in your area, there's someone who has a big mountain of soil that's looking to get rid of it real cheap. Chances are it's got a ton of good stuff in there still, and you can get it for pennies on the dollar. I see guys around here selling, or up in Oregon, selling yards of used soil for $100 or less.
Yeah,
and that's they're paying for 2 yards, 2.5 yards, they're paying damn near anywhere from $300 to $700, $800.
Yeah. Well, and they're not, if they're flipping it every single cycle. All you have to really do is throw that soil into a compost to get the salts out of it, reinvigorate it that way to strip what you don't want. And then, you're good to go on it.
Oh yeah. Just a simple soil test away from finding out whether that soil, how far you got to go down the rabbit hole. And, these days it's as easy as getting one of those $35 kits from online, or, if you really want to, find a good local lab, or a lab that's, you can trust. One of my favorites is Logan Labs. I believe they're in Colorado or Ohio. I don't remember, but there's a ton of great soil labs all over United States and Canada. And you don't have to spend ton of money to get a soil test. $60.
Yeah. Well, and exactly. Now, we did have a question here. Since plants communicate with roots, can chopping a cover crop transmit that same defense response to the cannabis plant? Any idea,
I don't know. That's a very good question. I don't think we know enough about how that communication works to say that works that way, especially with those type of plants. To my knowledge, this has mostly been observed with trees. And cannabis is a very ancient plant. There's a male and a female. It's not like most plants that are around these days. So it's hard to say. That would be more of a question for one of those Jeff Lowenfeld types that understands that type of that deep of a knowledge on microbiology.
Yeah, actually, we have
very good question. Very good. I would. That would be very something curious to find out.
Okay, I'm drawing a blank on the scientist that you actually had him on your show on BioAg that is talking about the horizontal gene transfer. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
I'm so bad.
Come on, chat, help us out here. But he's coming back on here in May.
Cool.
So maybe be a good question to ask him in May if
Absolutely.
that happens. Like I know I studied the mushroom guy Paul Stamets, and I watched the experiment where they took a nuclear isotope and put it into the soil at the base of a tree, and they had their team. I can't remember the distance away, but it was a significant distance away. And as they injected the isotope, it was registering that distance as they were putting it into the soil structure. So there is that instant communication through the rhizosphere, if your rhizosphere exists, right? So in a fresh soil, you haven't built that yet.
No.
But that's where the living soils, it is going to communicate. Now, if it's going to communicate that this bug is in the area, there's that potential communication that could exist. But yeah, it's, I'm not a scientist and haven't even heard of anybody even thinking in that direction, but it's a hell of a good idea. And no, it wasn't Gerald Pollock. Gerald Pollock's a water. Oh my goodness. I can't believe I can't remember his name. I know we just had Charlie Schultz on. Let me just check my calendar here because this is going to be annoying. James White. There we go. Dr. James White.
I remember James.
Yeah, well, he is really talking about the horizontal gene transfer and how so much information, and that's where, we get back into the quorum sensing, and the biology recreating something that doesn't exist in the soil structure. But if we keep killing that, or we don't allow that quorum sensing to happen, that's where I think we run into that predator prey model where, I've literally had, plants just, die, because the biology went anaerobic. It didn't have the levels of biology. And then I don't know how familiar you are with Leighton Morrison's horizontal soil system, Josh. Are you very into that?
I am unfamiliar with his system.
Well, basically what he's done is set up a sand and rock, so an aquifer level, and then he put sand, silt, clay, and organic material in a percentage in the middle, and then he has an organic layer on top. So considering that a plant, when you put a plant in, there's two types of roots. There's your water roots, which is going to go deep. That's your tap root, right? And then your feeder roots move to the side. They move laterally, and that's where they feed in that top, 5-6 inches, depending on how thick a mulch layer you have. But, there's so many people that don't understand that. Look at how many people plant a tree in even a clay soil. They dig a big hole that's going to hold water. Then they stick their tree in, put a bunch of soil in, and expect the tree to do really well over time. It doesn't really make sense that way. But when you're dealing with the predator prey, if you're not allowing that soil to have those clods of soil or aggregation, or adding a small percentage of biochar to have that, like think of it as the University of Alexandria. All of the knowledge is gathered into one area, and that's all the biology coming together and talking to each other. That's the horizontal gene transfer side of it, and then creating something that's not there. And they can create anything. Like, have you ran into roly-polies, Josh?
Yes.
Well, I heard one story on the Future Cannabis Project. A gentleman was talking about he had harvested, and then he went on holidays, and he had just left his room all indoors. He came back, and he had a roly-poly outbreak, right? Like massively. And he basically went, "Oh my God," and he shut the door, and he went to try to figure out, and this is back in the day where you had to go to the forums. He went to try to ask questions like, what do I do about this? Like, well, he left it for, I think it was another almost a week. he went back in and there was white spiders everywhere. He couldn't even walk in. They were dropping on his head. So at that point, his wife freaked out. He closed the door again, walked away. But when he went back in a couple of days, the spiders were not as bad, but the roly-polies were being eaten by the spiders. And all of a sudden, over a certain amount of time, the balance was met back up. The roly-polies were in control and the spiders were in control. That's where your biology can create what's not there to take care of that imbalance, as long as they have the building blocks. And that's where BioAg and biostimulants really help, is supplying those types of components into the soil structure that you're using on. And then, of course, when you're growing the plants, you're foliarly spraying a lot of the products you guys have and adding those building blocks. But without the biology, you can put all the building blocks you want. You don't got the construction crew to build a house. You're in trouble, man.
Exactly. You know, the whole BioAg line is really designed to help feed and foster that microbiome in the soil, you know, and help it get established faster. You know, that's what they designed almost all of the BioAg dry humate products specifically for, is conditioning soil, whether it's, with silica, with micronutrients, with seaweed and micronutrients, or silica and fulvic acid. Each one of those does a different thing to help clean, cleanse, and regenerate the soil. You know, it just depends on what you're going after and the effect you're trying to get. The more you condition that soil and the better you treat it, the better it's going to treat the plants you're growing in it.
Yeah. Well, and it's like I tell people, you're not growing plants, you're growing biology. The biology builds the cell. So if you're feeding the biology what it needs, it's going to build healthy cells, because that's its house. That cell is the biology's house. So it's going to want the best house. It's not going to want to be leaking and all these other problems. It wants to be happy, safe, and secure in its house, just like we do.
Exactly. It wants long-term food, it wants short-term food. Every once in a while it wants to splurge on some stuff. So that's different.
Ice cream and chocolate if you're a woman, right?
Yes. Or molasses if you're a microbe. If you want to give it healthier food, give it humic acid, good sources of clean seaweed and, specific micronutrients, and that'll keep it, going and thriving and get it established far, far sooner. You can use mycorrhizae in containers indoors, and you will see a little bit of a difference at the end of your cycle. But the longer your cycle is, the more you'll see a difference. But if you start your cycle with mycorrhizae and beneficial biostimulants, you're going to get it far established, far faster, and you're going to see a much bigger difference through the latter half of your flower cycle than you ever would without it. And that's really where you see a very, very big difference adding biostimulants in with your yields with organic fertilizers, particularly if they're soil specific. But if even more important, if you're using liquid organic fertilizers, if you're not incorporating biostimulants and beneficial bacteria with those, you're not going to get the yields that you want. You're not going to get the quality that you want. You're just pouring, a different source of NPK on your plants at that point. It's not necessarily, it is a type of organic gardening, but it's nothing without the biology.
Yeah. Well, there's no life without the biology. That's one of the things that people need to really understand. It doesn't matter how you grow, what you grow, as long as you're growing, there's biology there, because it's the biology building the cell. If there's no biology, you have no plant. So that's where, you started out in hydroponics. I actually avoided that. I was growing in aquaponics originally, not growing cannabis at all, growing, lettuce and onions and stuff like that. So it's having all of the different levels of biology. And that's where Leighton Morris's system allows that, because you have that anaerobic layer in your aquifer that's allowing that biology that's there in the fish end of things, which is the earlier transitional biology, which is your foundation. And then you've got the transitional biology. A lot of people effector microorganisms. They talk about EM1 and having the different biology. But that's your transitional biology that can interact and move up and down in the life cycle of anaerobic to aerobic and bring things up and down. That's where the predator prey really comes into effect, is having all the different levels. And at the top in your organic, well, you're going to see your shredders, your larger biology you can see with the naked eye, but there's all that biology that has to be there in the bacterial end of things, because that's really breaking things down. Your fungi has to be there to break those components out of sand, silt, and clay, because it's producing the acids that do it in conjunction with all this other biology. And what I find amazing, Josh, and I don't know if you've ran into this, is the biology that changes what it does between the light cycle of light and dark. Have you ran into any of that kind of stuff?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
The same biology that as your lights turn out, it actually changes its functionality and what it does for the plant now that it's not having to deal with photons of light.
No, I can't say as I have.
Yeah, I can't remember the specific biology now, but there's a lot that they're finding that even in the life cycle of the biology, one day it'll be doing this job for the plant, but in an hour it'll flip and do a different job for the plant, and then it can flip back. It's the best way I would describe it. It's like the electrician that can also be a carpenter, right? And as the job comes up, it goes, I need to do this job because that's what's lacking. I find a lot of that in the bee world when I studied bees, because that's where I first learned about the predator-prey model, was in dealing with bees in my study of natural beekeeping. It's that when you need to have the balance met, Mother Nature just works to create that balance. And as long as you're giving Mother Nature the building blocks, or the biology the building blocks, it's going to find the right genetic code to create what it needs to create.
Mother Nature usually has the best way of figuring most stuff out if you can pay attention. The hard part's
if you allow her to do it, I think a lot of Leighton Morrison's "Don't Be a Moron" comes from that. It's with your biostimulants, people can cut back on the amount of fertilizer so they don't have to be a moron. How much percentage, like just we'll take full power as the example, Josh. How much reduction in overall feeding are a lot of the growers finding when they're using just full power in both a hydroponic or any other type of system?
With hydroponic systems and synthetic feeding, upwards of 20%. Average being somewhere between 10 and 15. But once you get it dialed, somewhere around 20%. But once you stack other biostimulants like amino acids, particularly, and a good beneficial bacteria that thrown into the biome, and some silica, now you've got now you've stacked a significant amount more on that. Now let's say your veg food in hydroponics, you can reduce that by up to 40%. Because you can find good sources of organic nitrogen that you can supplement with foliar, and you can really reduce the amount of nitrogen input that you're putting in. And when you're growing cannabis, particularly boutique cannabis, it's that calcium nitrate that you taste at the end of the cycle. It's that synthetic magnesium, that EDTA. That's what makes it sparkle. And the nitrogen makes it taste bad. So if you can reduce that by supplementing higher quality micronutrients with your hydroponics, and supplementing that synthetic nitrogen for a foliar sprayed organic nitrogen, you can reduce your inputs of synthetics by a ton. That is across the board with all crops, pretty much. Particularly nitrogen heavy feeders like cannabis. when it comes to organic fertilizing, you can still reduce your need for inputs by quite a bit, especially through foliar spray. Adding that in and spraying it on directly with a good, readily available form that's pre-digested can do wonders for just about every crop and negate the need for liquid organic fertilizers at all. I use I've been able to negate most, if not all, liquid fertilizers with just simple top dressings with highly amended soil and a little insect frass, combined with biostimulants. And then
so do you use a lot of worm castings or anything on the worm end of things?
In my soil, all the soils I use are at least 20% worm castings.
Okay, cool.
Across the board. And there's a great place in Washington, the state of Washington, that produces what's the name of that company? That's going to drive me nuts. Four Corners. They make a fantastic worm casting. It's very, very affordable, and it's incredibly clean. One of the problems with worm castings, particularly worm castings produced on a large scale, is they're incredibly contaminated with heavy metals. So check that heavy metal statement before you go purchasing worm castings, especially if you're making a tea out of it. You're going to concentrate those heavy metals, particularly arsenic. I have seen more than one commercial cannabis farm in Oregon test hot for heavy metals directly because of worm castings. The stuff that they feed the worms in those cheap production worm casting farms is garbage, paper, cheap manure, green manure, municipal waste, whatever they can get, a good place that's feeding vegetable waste, or some other cleaner form, it's not going to do that, particularly if they're using.
Have you ran into the difference between just worm castings and vermicast, which is using compost as the bedding for the worms instead of feeding them the other stuff as well? It's a lot purer of a form. Have you ran into the difference of that as well?
Absolutely. I used to have a gentleman who made unfortunately he retired, but he lived up in Mill City, Oregon, and he made a small batch worm castings, but he was a mushroom farmer. So he'd take all his old mushroom blocks, compost them, and feed those to his worms. And it was the best worm castings I could get for forever. In fact, I couldn't stack those worm castings too close to my soil because all of a sudden my soil would start popping mushrooms out of the bags. And people that didn't know better would bring it back and be like, hey, there's mushrooms in the soil. I want to trade it. And I was like, absolutely. I'll take that from you. And I'll just take this home and you can have a brand new bag of soil. How about that? And you don't have to worry about these wonderful mushrooms in there. Chop it up.
All that wonderful mycelium that's in there that they have no clue that they need.
I try to tell them too. And I'd be like, this is awesome. Just chop this up and take it home. It's fantastic. Like, no. I don't want mushrooms. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'll just take this and you can have yourself a fresh bag of soil. There you go. And every time chop that up, throw a little bit on top, throw some in the tea that day, and watch the magic happen. But hey, man, I gotta let you go here. I've got some people I gotta catch up with here in California and go visit some farms. I will see you guys later. Ken, wonderful as always.
You bet. Have a great day, brother, and drive safe out there.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Bye-bye. Well, guys, that's it for Josh and John. So anyway, we talked a lot about predator prey, and we talked mainly about the plants, but there's a lot of different aspects of our life in general that you can apply the predator prey model to, including business, etc. That's where your community comes into play. Like, you want to find people in your community, whether that's this community, the cannabis community, or any other type of a community. You want to find those people with the right moral values that you hold dear in yourself to hang around with. That can be considered a predator prey as well. A lot of the energetic side of the thing, the equation, is in those relationships as well, where if you have someone in your life that is preying on your energy, then you really don't want to have that particular person hanging around you closely. You can keep them on the fringes, but the best thing, of course, is to eliminate that negative influence altogether. Now, that can be really difficult and heart-wrenching, etc., but it depends on if you want to reach your full genetic potential. You can't do it with the negative energy, just like your plant can't do it without the proper energy. And if there's negative energy in your grow, and we've talked about things like this on several different shows, where a negative person coming into your grow really does affect what happens in your grow. They can bring the energy down. So we want to stay away from energy vampires. That's part of the predator prey. You can be a predator yourself, you can be prey yourself, but you can also be an even balanced individual, I guess would be the best way to put it. And that's where I try to function, is in that balance where the prey and the predator is working together to maintain the system, whether that's in my physical form, whether that's in my energetic. I try to stay positive and promote the journey that I would like to see a lot of people take, which is to the higher mental planes of existence, understanding, and energy. We're moving into a new age where energy is rising on a daily basis. I know I track the Schumann resonance quite a bit, and the energy on our planet in the different levels of energy, so the different frequencies, is slowly moving upwards. We are winning against the, we'll just call them the elites, their system of preying on us, and they have been the energy vampires in a lot of instances on our planet, is slowly coming to an end. We just have to get through the craziness that's happening on our world right now to move into that. But the more of us that focus on that higher energetic level of understanding and believing in ourselves and having the smiles, taking the time to listen to someone. A lot of people just don't listen. You can be talking to them and they're off over here, they're off over there. They don't focus on what you're saying. And I have learned that I myself need to slow down and listen to others to understand truly what they're trying to say. And in doing that, I can help raise my energy because I'm doing a positive thing, and that brings me my energy up. And it really helps the other person that somebody is truly listening to what they're saying. We lack that a lot of times in our society nowadays. So be not necessarily the predator, be the rock that people climb onto and want to be around, that you don't have to worry about becoming the prey. You can exist in the community of like-minded people that really want to better each other, and nobody's trying to prey on someone else. So there are no real predators. There's just everybody working together for a better, community, a better world, a better outcome for our species. So anyway, guys, I think I'll cut it a few minutes early. I want to thank you. Sorry about Wednesday, guys. Andy Lopez was sick on Wednesday, so we didn't do Wednesday's show. He's feeling better now, so we will be coming back on this Wednesday. We have Dennis Meehan is coming back on today with Leighton, and we're going to continue the conversation from a few weeks ago. Then we have Tom Landry coming on the week after that, getting back into the horizontal soil systems and where his commercial grow using that system is. He's having some totally amazing results, guys. You guys are going to want to check that out. But love you guys. We will see you this afternoon for question period on the Soil Matters with Dennis Meehan and Leighton Morrison. Peace out, guys.